What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Blank Online here today to chat with you more about some Call of Duty 2020. Now, we all know about the current pandemic that is going on around the world. Now, what I wanted to talk about here is how it's going to affect Call of Duty 2020. Now, we all know that Sledgehammer Games and Treyarch is working on this game at this current point in time, but if the pandemic is to get worse and we receive sort of lockdowns and things that will stop the developers getting in the studio and completing this game, what will happen to Call of Duty 2020? We don't know how far in development they are. We don't know how close they are to releasing any sort of teaser trailers and that sort of stuff. We don't even know who's actually developing the game. We are just assuming that it's going to be Treyarch and Sledgehammer Games. But from what we know right now, and the information that is available to us, how will this current pandemic affect Call of Duty 2020? There's a couple factors here that we need to understand when understanding how Call of Duty 2020 is going to be affected. Obviously, the first thing will be sort of lockdowns and studio closures due to kind of, I guess, slow down the virus and that sort of stuff. And then the other thing that we need to consider as well is the next generation of consoles, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. Now, with both of those consoles coming out in this year, or slated to come out this year in the holiday period, again, how is the virus going to affect the manufacturing of those consoles? Because obviously those companies will be getting those components and mass producing them and mass manufacturing them, outsourcing to companies and warehouses and that sort of things in China. Obviously, due to a number of factors like the low cost of labor and that sort of stuff, and all this stuff that we don't really need to understand at this current point in time. But as the world gets to grips with this virus, and their, I guess, the sort of time period they're sort of touting out there will be that this virus will sort of calm down in around 6 months time, and that's September. And September is usually when we have some sort of beta, or at least we have a lot of information available to us and we have some sort of concrete idea on what this next Call of Duty game is going to be. If this virus is to be sort of slowed down by then, what will that mean for the next generation of consoles? Because this game is going to be coming out on PS4, Xbox One, PC, and the next generation of consoles as well. So could we see possibly a scenario where the game is ready to go on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, but since the next generation of consoles is not ready to be released at the original time they were meant to be released due to this pandemic, and seeing those next generation of consoles delayed possibly to 2021, could we see Call of Duty 2020 then get another release for the next generation of consoles when those consoles then eventually come out? Now, we did get a reveal of all things Xbox Series X, and at the time that I'm posting this video, we would have already had our reveal of all things PS5. And now, again, we still haven't got any sort of release date. All we have is holiday 2020, which again is looking kind of bleak, because if we do get, and especially in the United States, if we do get some sort of lockdown where people have been asked to stay in their homes in order to slow down the spread of this pandemic, then what we will see is the studio being 2 weeks behind, is PS4 and Microsoft and Sony being 2 weeks behind the development of their next generation of consoles as well. And 2 weeks is quite a long time. You got to think of all the things that they could do within those 2 weeks. And yes, you could say that the developers could be working from home, but again, it's about that collaboration. It's about them being in that sort of studio space, collaborating with the other developers and working on this game together. If they're working from home, yes, they can work on nits and bits, but overall, the amount of things you're going to be able to do at home versus the amount of things you're going to do when you're in the studio is a hell of a lot of a difference. So in terms of how this pandemic is going to affect Call of Duty 2020, I really hope that it doesn't, and I really hope that they're on the ball, they're on track with things, and they're sort of prepared for a potential lockdown. And I hope that everything goes according to plan. It's seeming like the Xbox Series X and the PS5 is going to be released in holiday 2020 as planned. So it's safe to assume that those consoles are sort of on the right track and on a timeline, and those companies are prepared for anything that could happen as a result of this. But I think the main thing that we have to understand here is that if it's a choice between the health of the studios and Microsoft and Sony and everyone involved with this, if it's a choice between their health and us getting a new Call of Duty game, you gotta understand that their health is the main thing. Now, I'm not someone who's going overboard and going super crazy about this pandemic and, oh, it's gonna be the end of the world and we should start panic buying and all this sort of stuff. I'm not. I'm on the side of, we have to contain it. We need to do something to contain it, stop the deaths, stop the number of cases in each and every country. Let's find a vaccine or a cure. Let's stop the spread and let's just get it over and done with so that we can move on with our lives. Because I don't think everyone wants to be hearing for the next 6 months the news and the media constantly being blasted with all this virus crap. Like, I'm sure that none of us want that anymore. We just want to get it over and done with and move on. And I think that's the best thing for us to do right now. And in terms of it affecting not only Call of Duty 2020 but the next generation of consoles as well, I think that it will have some sort of an effect, just depending on how it escalates, especially in the United States, how it de-escalates in China, and all those sort of things. But I think it all comes down to how we react. And as the governments around the world react to, I guess, isolating it, containing it, and getting rid of it once and for all. Maybe not getting rid of it, but finding a way to fight it and fight back and letting us move on and have people go back to work, be safe at work, not fearing that they're going to catch it and spreading it to like their elderly or relatives with existing health risks and that sort of stuff. So I think that what needs to happen is that it needs to be contained. And if closing down Treyarch and Sledgehammer, or closing down Microsoft and Sony for a 2-week period in order to contain it, if that needs to occur, then it occurs. And if we see delays in the release of Call of Duty 2020, if we see delays in the release of the next generation consoles, it's not really something that we should be all too upset about, or all too sort of like, oh man, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it's just a virus, it's just a flu. Like, I get it, I understand. It's like, it's crazy that how overboard people are going, but we need to understand that it's not us that's being affected by this. Like, I'm sure you and I are perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, our immune systems are intact, all that sort of stuff. But you never know, like someone at Treyarch could have some sort of existing health issue where this virus does affect them, or someone at Sony, someone at Microsoft. Like, there's so many different variables and different things that we need to consider before getting on their backs about Call of Duty 2020 and having it release in the time that it was meant to be released. Like, I'm sure if we got our release date in November as opposed to late October, that would be 100% fine. I'm sure if we got our release for the PS5 and Xbox Series X in December instead of November, that would be completely fine as well. It's just going to muddle up the release dates of Call of Duty 2020, if anything. And I think that the main thing that will affect the release of this game will be if the next generation of consoles do get delayed due to the time frame between the virus being dealt with and the amount of time it will take for them to mass manufacture all of these consoles and deliver them out and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's honestly the worst case scenario. I don't believe that there's going to be any crazy delays. I don't believe that our game Call of Duty 2020 or the next generation of consoles is going to be too affected by this. But what I will say is that if they do get affected by it, it needs to be obviously it's going to be because this sort of lockdown occurs, or there's some sort of outbreak in the studios and things need to be self-isolated and contained and all that sort of stuff. So again, to reiterate all that I'm saying, yes, Call of Duty 2020 can and could be affected by this pandemic. Whether or not it's going to be is yet to be seen. We need to see how it escalates. We need to see how it evolves in the near future. But what I will say is that if it does affect Call of Duty 2020 and if it does affect the next generation of consoles, it's going to be for good reason, right? It's not going to be just they delayed it just because. It's going to be they delayed it because we needed to take a 2-week break in order for things to settle, slow down, and in order for the spread of the virus to stop. And that's the best thing that we can do right now. We need to stop the spread, we need to stop the deaths, and that's all it's about. And if we don't get a Call of Duty on time, that's completely fine. It's really not something that we should be all too worried about. I personally am not too worried about the pandemic. I'm personally not too worried about Call of Duty 2020 or the next generation of consoles being cancelled or delayed or anything like that. Like, it's gonna come. Let's just let it come when everyone is in not such of a panic and not in such of a state of emergency. Let's enjoy the next generation of consoles. Let's enjoy Call of Duty 2020 when we're back to a sense of normalcy. And that's pretty much it. Anyways, guys, let me know if you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment down below. I don't know, what's your thoughts on everything going around in the world at the moment? Shit's pretty crazy. People are panicking. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Click subscribe if you're new here so you don't miss out on my next video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.
Pull up in the gold, I'm leading. But them other man need feeding. I don't wanna go Bombay. Them I don't know what I do when I go from Beeling. Leading the pack in black and I'm on with a bag. Snapping with a phone and dab. Boss up a man with a duster. Put him in the drip and sip blockbuster. Win, 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 that's the only ammo. Ring, 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 I reply with NO. Call me Leno, had it hot.